This is our second set of notes on muscle fitness. It'll be 16 slides. In this section, we're going to identify the major muscle groups of the body. It's pretty important to know the difference between the majors and the minors because it's going to help us set up our training programs. We're also going to talk about the difference in training between strength and endurance. We're going to attempt to apply those training principles to muscle fitness specifically. We're going to set ourselves up a fitness program, a muscle fitness program, and then actually we're going to talk a little bit about safety when we lift. So here we have our muscle diagram. We have two sides to the body, and we're going to talk about each one of them and kind of where those muscles go here. So first up we have the anterior, which is our front, and then we have the posterior, which is our back. We have major muscle groups on each. I'm going to kind of highlight the major muscle groups for you here. So we're going to start by highlighting a variety of different muscles here, and we're going to start with the deltoids. So your deltoids are going to be a major muscle group, and they're found right here. That's your shoulder. It's both on the anterior and the posterior, so you can see it there. Next up, we're going to jump right down to the next one on the list, which is your pectoralis major. Pectoralis major is your chest muscle, and you can find it right inside this area right here. That's obviously on your anterior. If I were to peel away my pectoralis major, I'd find another muscle just like it underneath, a smaller version, which is a pectoralis minor. We're going to stick to the anterior here, so the next up we're going to talk about is the biceps. So the biceps are going to be on your anterior, and it's actually going to be the front of your arm. It's responsible for moving your hand up towards your face. Keep moving on down. We're going to go with the abdominal muscles. Abdominal muscles are on your anterior. There are two groups of muscles. One runs vertical, like my line here, and then the other one's going to run horizontal or kind of at an angle underneath. So they come together like a V. And that's going to be a major muscle group as well. Continuing on down, the next up is our obliques. Our obliques are on the outside of our abs. So if you take a look just on the outside, your abs are towards the middle, your obliques are towards the side. Anytime you lean over to a side or come back up from that lean, that's going to be your obliques. Continuing to move down the anterior towards the bottom of your body and your feet is the next one up is the sartorius. Sartorius is actually not a major muscle, so not that important. The only reason I include the sartorius, it moves from your hip all the way down inside and wraps around the back of your knee. It's going to be the longest muscle in your body, so that's why I include it. Next up, we're going to talk about our quadriceps. So they're going to be on the anterior. Quadriceps are 4 separate muscles that make up that group, and it's all on the front. When you extend your leg out away or straighten your leg, that's your quadriceps doing that work. And that is the last muscle that we care to talk about on the anterior. Moving to the posterior side of the body, the first one we're going to start with are our traps, or our trapezius muscle. This is actually what we think of when we give a back massage. It's right in here, but that's not it. It also goes down and makes this upper V. So anything inside of here is going to be your trapezius muscle, so that's pretty cool. And anytime we lift our hands from low up towards our shoulders, that's our trapezius is going to help with that. So anytime we're pulling things up from below our shoulders towards our head, that's our trapezius. Next we have our lats, or latissimus dorsi. Those are going to be the bigger V. It goes kind of like right here. And it extends all the way down here. So it's this big old yellow V. It's going to be our latissimus dorsi. Lats are going to be highly responsible anytime we're pulling something towards our body from above our head. So up over our head, back down towards our body. That's going to be our latissimus dorsi. So pull-ups are a good example of an exercise for your lats. Moving down into our hip area, the first muscle we'll talk about is our gluteus maximus. This makes up our two round cheeks that holds our pants up. That's in this area. And then if you peeled those away, you'd see similar muscle underneath, and it's called your gluteus minimus. Next muscle we're going to talk about are our hamstrings, and those are going to be right in the back of our legs. Anytime we're bringing our foot up towards our butt, that's going to be our hamstring doing that. It's an important muscle to try to balance out with your quads, if you can, quadriceps. Moving on down, the next one up is our gastrocnemius. Gastrocnemius are our calf muscles, and those are anytime we extend our toes away from our body, so down away. That's going to be our gastrocnemius, doing the squeeze to lift our body up. So in review, I'll just highlight the major muscle groups that we had again. So we have our trapezius muscle, we have our deltoids, our pectoralis major, latissimus dorsi, gluteus maximus, hamstrings, quadriceps, and then that's it. The only other two that I would include, but they're going to be at the end of a workout, would be your obliques, and then secondly would be your abdominal muscles. So all that can be included in there. So the major muscles we would include obviously first in our workout, and then from there we would go with the minor muscle groups. And the minor muscle groups that are really left out there that we've gone through are the triceps, the biceps, and then the gastrocnemius. So those would be the ones that we would have at the end of our workout. Those are more not primary or major muscles, but they assist with other muscles. Next up, when we're talking about setting up a workout, there's a few things you want to know about. First off is the repetition. So anytime we're talking about a repetition, it's one time, one single movement. So one bicep curl would be an example of a repetition. If I do one bicep curl, that could be the repetition. Resistance, most of the time resistance is going to be a weight we lift. So it's going to be the weight, or sometimes it's body weight. So it just depends on what we're doing, what type of resistance we have. A set is going to be a group of repetitions. So, and the way you'd write this out is if I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 repetitions in bicep curls, I would write 3 by 10, which gives me 3 sets, 10 reps. That's how that works. On the bottom here, 1 repetition max is how much I could lift one time. You never really want to do this. This isn't a safe thing to do, but when you're figuring out how much you should lift during your sets, you kind of want to have an estimate of your 1 repetition max, which there are charts for you to help you figure out what you could lift in a 1 repetition max. So you can take a look here. There's the difference between strength and endurance when we're weight training. As you can see, one of the biggest things is I'm going to lift between 30 and 50% of my 1 rep max for endurance, and 60 to 90% of my 1 rep max for strength. So that's during my sets. Also during my sets, I'm going to do 3 to 8 repetitions with strength, where I'm going to do 10 to 15 with endurance. And then another big thing that's a difference is the rest between sets. If you take a look at this, it's obvious that in strength you need more rest to recover, because you're putting in like that really, really great high intensity effort with each set, where you're working longer, but maybe your intensity is not quite as high with endurance, so your resting time is less. In terms of how often should I lift, well, 3 to 5 times per week is what you should shoot for. The intensity that you use is per exercise. So for your bicep curls, the intensity will be whatever you lift for bicep curls. If you did shoulder press, it would be whatever you lift. Maybe it's 10 pounds, maybe it's 15, whatever the case is. But again, here's another example of how you would write sets and reps. And that's really your time. Your time is how many sets and reps you're doing, but it's also the overall time. So if it takes you 35 minutes, that would be an example of time.